The conference room fell silent when the CEO's hand froze above a single dad's phone. She had borrowed it for one urgent call, expecting nothing more than a dusty old device with a cracked screen. But the moment the call connected, the screen suddenly lit up with two words that made her forget the entire board meeting: Dad. She stared at it, confused, because the name displayed on the screen belonged to the very man whose approval could decide the future of her company. And the man standing beside her, holding a stack of delivery receipts and wearing a faded blue work shirt, was the last person she ever expected to be connected to him. If you believe kindness and second chances can change someone's life, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share this story with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Because sometimes, the person we overlook is carrying a story powerful enough to change everything. It had been a difficult morning for 38-year-old Rowan Mercer. He was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Sienna, in a small apartment on the edge of the city. Rowan worked wherever he could find honest work. Some days he delivered office supplies, other days he repaired broken furniture, and when money was especially tight, he accepted overnight warehouse shifts. He had once dreamed of becoming an architect, but after his wife passed away unexpectedly several years earlier, those dreams had been packed away beside old photographs and hospital bills. Sienna had become the center of his world, and Rowan had learned to measure success differently. A paid electricity bill, a warm meal, a clean school uniform, and a few minutes reading bedtime stories were victories worth celebrating. That morning, Rowan arrived at the headquarters of a massive technology company called Vera Systems to deliver a box of replacement equipment. He stood quietly in the bright marble lobby while executives rushed past him in expensive suits. His shoes were worn, his shirt sleeves had been repaired near the cuffs, and his old phone had a long crack across the corner of its screen. He did not feel embarrassed. He simply wished he had enough money to replace it. His phone was important because Sienna's school called him through it, and every time her name appeared on the screen, Rowan answered immediately. At the same time, 41-year-old Celeste Arwin, the CEO of Vera Systems, was having the worst morning of her career. Her company was preparing for a critical investment decision, and she needed to speak with the chairman before an emergency board meeting began. Her own phone had stopped working after being damaged during her rushed commute. Her assistant was stuck downstairs dealing with security, and the chairman's private office line was temporarily disconnected. Celeste looked around the reception area impatiently until her eyes landed on Rowan. She approached him and politely asked whether she could use his phone for one quick call. Rowan hesitated for half a second before handing it over. He did not ask who she was or why she needed it. He simply believed that if someone needed help and he could provide it, there was no reason to refuse. Celeste dialed the chairman's number from memory and waited. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then the call connected. But before Celeste could speak, the screen changed. Instead of the professional contact name she expected, the screen displayed one simple word: Dad. Celeste's face changed instantly. She looked at Rowan, then back at the phone. Her fingers tightened around it. She realized she had not called the chairman from her own phone. She had accidentally dialed the number Rowan had saved under Dad. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the voice on the other end came through clearly enough for Celeste to recognize it. It was Alastair Mercer, the chairman of Vera Systems. The same Alastair Mercer whose signature was required for the company's biggest decision of the year. Celeste slowly turned toward Rowan. She looked at his worn shoes, his delivery box, his faded shirt, and finally his calm expression. Rowan immediately understood what had happened. He had not known who the number belonged to when Celeste dialed it. He simply said that he hoped there had not been a problem. Celeste could barely process the connection. The quiet delivery worker standing in front of her was apparently the chairman's son. But Rowan wasn't the son everyone in the company imagined. He was the son Alastair had spent years trying to find again. The truth was far more complicated than Celeste could have guessed. Rowan had been separated from his father when he was a teenager after a bitter family dispute. Alastair had been obsessed with building Vera systems and had made choices that destroyed his relationship with his wife and son. Rowan had wanted a father, not a fortune. He eventually walked away from the family wealth and built a life of his own. Even after Alastair became one of the city's most influential businessmen, Rowan refused to return to the corporate world. When Rowan's wife died, Alastair had tried to help financially. Rowan had refused. He did not want money to repair what years of silence had broken. Yet despite everything, Rowan had never changed his father's contact name. It still said Dad. Not because their relationship was perfect. Because Rowan secretly hoped that one day it might be. Celeste suddenly felt ashamed of how quickly she had judged him. She had seen a delivery worker and assumed he was insignificant. She had never imagined that the man she had overlooked had spent years choosing dignity over privilege. The emergency board meeting began minutes later. Celeste entered the room with Rowan's phone still fresh in her mind. The executives around the table were discussing a proposal that would close one of Vera's older service centers and eliminate dozens of lower-level jobs. Financially, the decision made sense. The numbers were impressive. The investors would likely approve. But Rowan's presence had changed the way Celeste looked at those numbers. She remembered his repaired shirt. She remembered the way he had immediately handed over his phone without asking for anything. And she wondered how many people inside the company were struggling quietly just like him. Then Alastair arrived. He entered the boardroom with a stern expression, but the moment he saw Rowan standing near the door, everything changed. The powerful chairman stopped walking. His eyes filled with emotion. For several seconds, he simply stared at his son. Rowan did not move. Years of hurt stood between them. But so did hope. Alastair finally walked toward him. He did not talk about money, business, or reputation. He simply looked at his son's tired face and admitted that he had spent too many years believing success could replace the people he had lost. Rowan's eyes became wet, but he remained silent. Celeste watched from across the room as the chairman of one of the city's largest companies stood before his son with nothing left to hide behind. Then came the decision that shocked the board. Alastair refused to approve the proposal to close the service center. He asked Celeste to create a new plan that protected the employees while improving the company's efficiency. Several executives protested. They argued that compassion had no place in corporate decisions. Celeste disagreed. She told them that businesses were built on numbers, but people were the ones who carried those numbers home. They were parents paying rent, children buying school supplies, and families trying to survive difficult months. She said that if Vera could not find a way to grow without destroying the lives of the people who helped build it, then the company had forgotten what success meant. The room became quiet. Rowan stood near the doorway, listening. He had not asked anyone to save those jobs. He had not asked his father for anything. Yet somehow, the simple act of lending his phone had changed the direction of an entire company. Weeks passed. Celeste began visiting the service center herself. She met employees who had worked there for decades. She discovered talents the executives had never noticed and ideas that could save the company millions without sacrificing jobs. The new plan worked. The service center remained open. Employee training programs expanded. And Rowan was offered a position designing a community-focused project for Vera. He almost refused because he feared being treated differently because of his family connection. Celeste understood his concern and told him he would receive the opportunity because of his abilities, not because of his father's name. For the first time in years, Rowan allowed himself to consider an old dream. Architecture. He began designing affordable community spaces for working families, including childcare centers and educational hubs. His first project was inspired by Sienna, who had once asked why some children had beautiful places to learn while others did not. Months later, a new community center opened on the east side of the city. Sienna stood beside her father during the opening ceremony, holding his hand while cameras flashed around them. Alastair stood a few steps away, no longer acting like a distant chairman but like a grandfather who finally understood how much time he had lost. Celeste watched them from the stage and remembered the cracked phone. A simple phone. A simple favor. A single word on a screen. Dad. That one word had exposed something no financial report could measure: the cost of pride, the value of forgiveness, and the incredible power of ordinary kindness. Rowan never became obsessed with wealth. He still drove an old car. He still packed Sienna's lunch before school. He still answered every call from her, even when he was busy. But now, when his phone rang and the screen displayed "Dad," there was something different in his heart. The name no longer represented a broken relationship. It represented a second chance. And sometimes, that is what people need most: not a perfect past, not unlimited money, and not a life without mistakes, but one opportunity to choose differently. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes people deserve second chances, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. And before we end, here is a special request: comment "Second chances matter" below if you believe one act of kindness can change a life. Because Rowan thought he was only lending someone his phone that morning. He never imagined that the person on the other end would be his father. He never imagined that one word, "Dad," would bring two broken lives back together. And he certainly never imagined that a cracked phone screen could reveal something worth far more than money. Sometimes life changes quietly. Sometimes it happens in a boardroom. Sometimes it happens through a simple phone call. And sometimes, all it takes is one ordinary person choosing to be kind.